Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me again today. We had so many comments and feedback regarding our most recent GLP-1 video that I thought it might be helpful to unpack that video one component at a time. So today we're going to focus mostly on how critical mitochondrial health and your metabolism is to successful weight loss. Whether you're choosing to use a GLP-1 or not, we are going to dive deep into why cellular health is critical to your overall health, but also your weight loss success and long-term health. We're going to talk about why some people start on a GLP-1 and actually do fantastically well. They lose weight and they seem to thrive. We're also going to talk about why some people plateau and struggle to lose weight or don't lose weight at all. We're going to talk about how and why side effects of GLP-1s can actually derail your overall success with the medications or with the support. And last but not least, we are going to talk about metabolism, specifically how your body produces energy and whether you have a slow metabolism, a normal metabolism, or a fast metabolism, and how that directly impacts the success or failure or struggle with a GLP-1. So join me as I unpack this. Many people actually think or believe that GLP-1s are responsible for burning fat. And that is myth number one. GLP-1s do not burn fat. GLP-1s act specifically on our satisfaction or appetite suppression signals within our body. They do not burn fat. What helps us burn fat is our actual metabolism, how efficient our cells are at actually using things like fat, protein, carbohydrates when we eat them as energy, and also mobilizing our fat stores and using that as energy. So if our cells aren't actually efficient at creating energy from the food that we take in or the fat that we have on our body, then we will store that fat as direct fat tissue and continue to either struggle to lose weight or even, God forbid, gain weight as we're on our weight loss journey. We also, if our metabolism is struggling or if we're just dumping GLP-1s on top of an already fragmented metabolism or metabolic state, then we start to feel things like brain fog, energy crashes, extreme fatigue, muscle aches, difficulty working out, difficulty focusing on just regular tasks of the day. All of this goes back to our cellular health and whether your cells are able to use the food that you consume as energy. If we're using a GLP-1 and depriving our body further of calories, it makes this downstream cascade even more impactful and the side effects even more extreme. We're going to talk about them one by one as we slowly unpack this idea of our mitochondrial or energy health and how it contributes to actually weight loss success. I want to start by saying I think GLP-1s and the significant impact that they've had on so many people's lives has been extraordinary. I think this class of medications is actually a game changer, not only for weight loss, but metabolic health. I think there are a couple risks that we have to really watch out for and support people through. And I'm going to arm you with some very specific questions that you can ask yourself and you can ask your provider as you start to walk down this journey. Now, what we know about GLP-1s and their key benefits are they actually help us improve our blood sugar. When we have a normal regulated blood sugar, our body can run a lot more smoothly. We also reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and the downward cascade of a chronic disease like diabetes. As we know, GLPs also reduce our appetite. They actually help people reduce food noise. They have been very effective in things like addiction, alcohol addiction, and other addictions, even if it's not consumption addictions, but other addictions to help just sort of relax the body in ways that we don't even know exactly why it's helping people or why it impacts people's lives the way that they do. But we do know that they're beneficial. So most people think of metabolism as either a fast metabolism or a slow metabolism. But you may not understand all of the components of what goes into how your metabolism actually functions or what a metabolism actually is. I mentioned a moment ago that your metabolism is directly tied to how efficiently and effectively your body can produce energy. Energy at the cellular level through what we call the Krebs cycle. Now, for the Krebs cycle to actually function as it should, it needs things like basic nutrients. So we need the right amount of B vitamins, B complex vitamins. So we're talking B1, B2, B3, B6, B12. So a good B complex is critical to the Krebs cycle actually functioning. It's the most basic substrate. We also need the right amount of magnesium. We need to make sure we have enough carnitine because carnitine is critical as a fat shuttler to take the fat that we ingest and actually move it through the energy cycle to move it through the Krebs cycle and actually produce ATP, which is the molecule of energy that is produced at the cellular level through every Krebs cycle within the mitochondria. So if we're not able to actually have a functioning, efficient Krebs cycle, then we struggle to produce energy. And how do we have an efficient Krebs cycle? You guessed it. We need the right nutrients. We need the right substrates, all of the things that I just listed. So for the Krebs cycle to actually function and for it to produce energy or ATP, we actually need to ask ourselves some very critical questions. Are you taking in enough protein, carbohydrates, and fats? Now remember, GLP-1s actually suppress our appetite. So it is absolutely critical that we continuously question what sort of foods we're taking into our body. Are they actually supportive in helping our body to create the energy that it needs so that it can do the most minimum functions that is required? Like, can we think clearly? Can our heart beat effectively? Can we have normal digestion? Does our liver function appropriately? All of those things require energy as well. So our cells are not just producing energy so that we can walk around and exercise and go about our day. Our cells are actually producing energy so that every system in our body can function. And when we start a GLP-1, if we're not careful about fueling our body appropriately, then we run the risk of underfueling our body, which, you guessed it, slows our metabolism. So when we have a normal metabolism, our Krebs cycle is actually able to function normally. We're able to produce the energy that we need. We don't have to store excess fat, and we're able to get through our daily activities with a clear mind. We can wake up refreshed. We can recall words. Our heart functions as it should. We just feel good. That's when we know our metabolism is actually working exactly like it should be working. One of the biggest risks of GLP-1s, and you've heard me say this in the past, is rapid weight loss, because typically that rapid weight loss means we've got a significant amount of muscle loss. Muscle is critical for our structure. It helps support our bones. It's also critical for insulin sensitivity, to ensure that we have glucose control, to make sure that we have metabolic flexibility, and that we can recover. Without good muscle mass, we don't have the energy reserves that we need to actually continue to function at an elite high level day to day. So preserving our muscle mass and actually increasing our muscle mass as we're losing weight is critical to the success of GLP-1s. If we start to lose muscle mass, our metabolism starts to tank. When our metabolism starts to slow down, our body goes into a fight or flight sort of reaction and conserves energy because it thinks we're not able to fuel, we're not able to sustain. So we start to pull back, and weight loss becomes a little bit more tricky and more difficult the more we're losing muscle and the more our body is going into conservation. So now this brings up a really interesting question. How do you know if as you're losing weight, your body is actually responding positively or negatively? Well, I'm here to answer that question for you. As I've said in the past, we always need to test. So we need to test things like our most basic B vitamins, like I said. We need to know where our magnesium is. We need to actually also understand how much muscle mass we have and how much fat we have, so that when we're moving along the weight loss journey, we actually want them to become more muscle and less fat, if you've got more fat and less muscle, so that we can really hone in on where we need to spend our time. And the scale alone is not going to tell you that. When you get on the scale, you might actually see the number going down, but do you actually see the percent of muscle mass to fat? And if you don't, then you need to get a different scale, or you need to see a provider who can actually measure your body composition, because as you begin a GLP-1, it's going to be increasingly important for long-term success that as you lose fat, you gain muscle. So one of the things that we encounter frequently are clients who are very nervous about weight loss and then what happens after the GLP journey. It's one of the reasons that we do an in-body scan out of the gate, because we want to measure how much muscle versus fat our clients have when they start the GLP-1 at 3 months, at 6 months, at 9 months, and at 12 months. Because if at any time during that journey, the muscle mass starts to decline too rapidly, then we can either scale back on the GLP-1, we can recommend increased protein intake, and most importantly, we can encourage clients along the way to continue resistance training. This is increasingly important for long-term success, because what we want to do as we start to wean off of the GLP-1 is we want our body to actually have increased our metabolism. And the only way to do that is to actually increase our muscle mass, as well as to give our body the nutrients that it needs to support our metabolism. So going back to the Krebs cycle and all of the substrates that are required, we want to make sure that we've got all of our B vitamins, enough magnesium. We want to make sure we've got enough carnitine, and we want to make sure we have enough amino acids and protein to maintain and protect our muscles. Finally, I've said this many times, we have to make sure our gut health is where it needs to be. During this process, digestion is critical. We want to ensure easy digestion, easy elimination, no constipation, no nausea. That is one of the biggest side effects of GLP-1s, and it's also one of our biggest focuses to ensure that our clients don't experience them. With weight loss, you should actually be experiencing an easier flow, easier digestion, a clearer mind, clearer thinking, more energy, ability to work out. If these things are not happening and you're on a GLP-1, then I would strongly encourage you to go back to the basics of what you need to ensure your metabolism is protected. Like I mentioned, we want to ensure that our body is able to produce the energy that it needs to sustain the weight loss we're trying to achieve. It's far beyond just the scale, because we're looking at actually how our body is able to function at the cellular level. Finally, I just want to talk about why testing is important. We may have 2 or 3 people and they struggle with very different things. One person might come to us and start a GLP-1 because they have insulin resistance. Another may come to us because they struggle with their metabolism or energy production. Another may come to us because of cortisol dysregulation, which is directly impacted by our pituitary, thyroid, or other hormones, whether it's our sex hormones or even our glucose. So it's really critical that before we begin a GLP-1 that we test. We want to test for basic labs like insulin, fasting glucose. We want to make sure our liver is functioning. But deeper than that, we want to know, how is our cortisol throughout the day? What do our hormones look like? How are our nutrients? Do we need B vitamins? Do we need magnesium? And we cannot guess at those things because every body has different needs. There's no way to look at someone on the outside and predict what their need may be. So testing becomes critical for the success of weight loss journeys, through the journey, during the journey, but weight loss success far beyond a GLP-1. So as we start our GLP-1 journey with any of our clients, we're looking at more than just the number on the scale. We're looking at fat composition versus muscle composition. That's an in-body scan. We're looking at preserving that muscle throughout the 9 to 12 month journey. We're looking at improving digestion and not causing more harm to digestion. We are focusing on good brain health. We're focusing on clear thoughts. We're focusing on increased productivity, reducing overall inflammation, improving your sleep, and just helping you become more alive, more vibrant, improving vitality. That's what the weight loss journey should feel like. That's what it should look like. And at the end, when it's all said and done and you're finished with your GLP-1, that's how you should feel, saying, I did this. I walked this journey for the last year, and it was so worth it because my life is in a different place. I know now how to support my body beyond a GLP-1. I know how to feel good, because once you understand your body, you can change your life, and we can show you how.